Where I live, there aren't a whole lot of comic book shops other than the occasional flea markets, Barnes and Nobles, and Newbury Comics. However, when I'm actually able to find a comic book shop in the land of bumfuckia, I feel like Bruce Wayne entering the Tibetan temples for the first time, not knowing what to expect, but understanding the potential of what can be found. I'll usually look around for a while for any paperbacks I never usually see that seem interesting that I could binge, then I'll dig into the single issue bins and destroy my knees, and then I'll work my way to the owner's comic book recommendations. Sometimes it's the usual suspects like Batman Arkham Asylum or All-Star Superman and Kraven's Last Hunt, but then you find some gems you never thought you'd ever find and thoroughly enjoy. Comics like 100% by Paul Pope, or Grommets by Rick Remender, and Shirtless Fucking Bear Fighter. It's like, these are just genuine gems. So what I wanted to do for this video is essentially give you my curated comic book recommendations and go over what I love about them, in case anyone who watches my content actually likes to read. So with that, I want to begin with my Marvel recommendations. Up first, I have Immortal Iron Fist. I picked this mostly because I've been an Iron Fist fan ever since I could remember, but I'd never really read anything he'd ever been in, except for a little bit of his time in the New Avengers run that I read as a kid. Apart from that, it was really his presence in the Ultimate Spider-Man show and his aesthetic that made me love the character. So when I read Matt Fraction's Iron Fist, I was to the moon with joy, as it's a run that loosely takes place around the Civil War event, with Danny Rand unexpectedly meeting the Iron Fist that came before him, Orson Randall, finding out through Orson that there are a multitude of different techniques that the Iron Fist is capable of using, that Danny has never been made aware of, like self-healing, or infusing the power of the fist into objects like guns. This also includes Danny learning about the history of every Iron Fist that came before him, and the dark fate that meets every single one of them at the age of 33. If I could describe it, it's like if Avatar crossed with Iron Fist, and I love both, so yeah. Fucking check it out. Next up is Spider-Man Family Business. This is a story that's very special to me for a couple of reasons. First up, Gabriel Delato's art in this series is fucking phenomenal from start to finish. Second, I really dig the idea of Peter being a secret agent going on impossible missions across the globe. And thirdly, I love the inclusion of Peter's possibly not sister, Teresa Parker. She's used in the story as a way to connect Peter to a life he'll never be able to know. And this is something that profoundly affected me when reading, because in a way, I know what it's like to wonder what life would have been like if you were raised in a different world than the one you've known your whole life. To get a little personal, my father is from Ireland and skipped town pretty early in my life, like fucking Omni-Man, and I've never really met the other side of my family. I've never known that other world, but that's never stopped me from wondering. So Teresa Parker acting as a way for Peter to connect to that unknown, whether by telling Peter what his parents were like, or the perfume they used, or their favorite hobbies, it gives Peter a closure he never really knew he needed until that very moment. The only thing that kind of ticks me off is that Marvel doesn't want Peter to have a sister for some reason, and I will never understand why. It's not like it'd drastically change anything. I mean, it's basically the same thing as Superman and Supergirl's dynamic. Aside from that, it's a pretty good spy thriller with Spider-Man that I definitely enjoyed and suggest you to read when you get the chance. And for my final Marvel pick, it has got to be the best X-Men story ever made, called God Loves, Man Kills. It's essentially a much more grounded story about the conflict between humans and mutants, with a priest by the name of William Stryker at the forefront of the conflict, believing that mutants are demons sent down to Earth to destroy God's perfect world. Now, mutants barely ever have a leg to stand on as it is, but with Stryker projecting his vendetta onto the public, further adding to the hysteria surrounding mutant kind, mutants start dying on the streets, in their own homes, on fucking playgrounds, while Stryker's following grows more popular by the second, to the point the government thinks this guy's onto something and considers rounding up mutants in camps and wiping them all out. What I love about this story is that this problem is not solved by more violence, but with an actual dialogue, a dialogue Stryker purposely avoids, and that his very actions are contradictory to the god he believes in, as Kitty calls Stryker out on his bullshit to say that if anything, mutant kind is more human than he or anyone that follows him will ever be, killing thousands of mutants, killing his partner for having a mutant gene, killing his own baby boy for being a mutant. Kitty shouts that mutants have every right, every reason with all their power to rule over the world, and to be as cruel and as evil as Stryker, but that there's a better road to go down, a road where we can all come together and learn to laugh and to love one another, and that if it comes down to standing with our friends or worshipping a god that would praise the deaths of innocent children, she'd choose the latter. What she says doesn't outright end the mutant and human conflict as much as I wish it would. However, it leaves you with the message that every one of us is human, and nothing changes that, whether through powers or skin color or gender. All life is precious, and one does not have the right to deny that because one is different from the other. Go read it. It'll become your favorite X-Men book. So, on to my DC picks. For my first, I'm gonna have to say Kyle Rayner's Green Lantern run. Now, for a while, Hal Jordan used to be my number one, but after reading Emerald Twilight and seeing the tragic downfall of Hal, unable to cope with the loss of his entire fucking city, to the point he goes on a warpath killing every Green Lantern, Sinestro, and most of the Guardians, to then witnessing the rise of Kyle Rayner, the Frigining, and his triumph over Hal Jordan, no matter how depressing that shit turns out in the end. Kyle Rayner is my favorite Lantern, since the guy had to pave out his own path as a Green Lantern all on his own, with nothing but sheer will and determination. I've read through this run a few times, and I may even make a more in-depth video about it in the future, but I highly suggest you check it out. If you're a physical reader, you can start with the Kyle Rayner Compendium. Check it out. Now, my second pick isn't going to be any surprise, or maybe none of them will be, but second is absolute Martian Manhunter. I have a confession to make, guys. I've been a really big Martian Manhunter fan for a long time, from the DCAU to JLI, the Grant's Justice League, to anything he's ever really been in. And for a while, the Choco-loving giant hasn't had a solo title until now. Insert the Absolute Universe, which is made separate from all the mainline stuff to be able to actually take risks with the characters again. In this case, Absolute Martian Manhunter is a series following an FBI agent by the name of John Jones with a Martian nestled inside his head, giving John the ability to see people's thoughts through blooms of smoke emanating from their heads while slowly eroding his own mind. It's a trippy buddy cop crime thriller with beautiful art and colors that also tackles many societal problems that we face today, as we witness John not only juggle the Martian in his head alongside his family, but also struggles to stop a cosmic war with the White Martians. As of now, the series is on hiatus, I believe until Christmas Eve, and just has 6 issues, so it's easily bingeable for the time being. And I think my favorite moment from the series is either the Martian accidentally meeting Darkseid, or the page you have to lift into the light to see the full picture. The story is so impactful, I guarantee you'll have enjoyed checking it out. And for my final DC pick, as it stands right now, has got to be Batman the Imposter. Following a Batman a year or so into his career, as he's starting to make a massive impact onto Gotham, until someone starts impersonating Batman and ruthlessly killing people on camera, completely convincing the public that Batman needs to be brought down by any means necessary, leaving Bruce left to solve how one can prove their innocence from behind a mask. The story is very gritty, and one that manages to make Batman feel a bit more tangible. Bruce isn't wearing some high-tech suit with dozens of gadgets. He's wearing clunky armor and using gadgets that look like they've been glued and taped together. I also love certain aspects that make this Batman different, like Alfred abandoning him after his parents died, so Bruce never really got to establish a connection with anyone. There's also the element of seeing someone like Batman in therapy with Dr. Leslie Tompkins, to find out that this Bruce is a bit unwell in his faculties, which is super well written by Matz and Tomlin. Combined with Andrea Sorrentino on art, it makes one hell of a Batman story to enjoy. Now with that, I want to talk about my favorite indie comics I've read over the years, starting with Dawn Runner. A story set in a world with big-ass kaiju monsters, big-ass mech suits, big-ass arenas, and big-ass mental issues. As the protagonist Anita Marr merges with her new prototype mech called the Dawn Runner to find the consciousness of a long-dead soldier powering the mech itself, leaving the protagonist going from one reality to the other in order to find a way to stop the colossal kaiju called the Tetsa from ending the world. Written by Ram V, who's done other stories I really quite love, like Rare Flavors and New Gods. He's a writer that shot up to the top of my list of favorite comic book writers, and combined with Evan Cagle's artwork, it's fucking breathtaking, and an indie comic I highly recommend for you to check out. Up next is a story called Murder Falcon by another one of my favorite comic book creators, Daniel Warren Johnson. The story follows a guy by the name of Jake, a former lead guitarist in the band called Bruticus, who after quitting his career in music is then attacked by interdimensional monsters, until a huge muscular anthropomorphic cybernetic eagle by the name of Murder Falcon is sent from a heavy metal dimension called the Heavy to fight the monsters off. The only con, however, to Murder Falcon's almost unlimited power is that it's fueled solely by the power of heavy metal. Thus, Jake and Murder Falcon, or as his friends call him, Murph, must band together to defeat the monstrous forces of Magnum Chaos, a malevolent entity that feeds on negative human emotions. What I love most about this story is its themes of sticking to your passion no matter how hopeless the odds are, or of its use of music as a way to unify those to overcome deep trauma and despair, and how it highlights Jake facing his fears and finding purpose again, rather than wallowing in his own sorrow, just waiting for the clock to run out. It's utterly phenomenal and will leave you in a river of tears by the end. And now for my final pick. Bum, bum, bum. Asterios Polyp. I love this story and suggest this to those who love reading comics that are abstract as hell, as it follows a successful architect by the name of Asterios Polyp at the age of 50, wallowing in his own self-pity, until lightning strikes his apartment, causing everything he's ever known to go up in flames. After which, it follows Asterios deconstructing his old life in order to construct a more complete and fulfilling life. I love a lot of the meanings the story has to offer with growth, the perception of memory, and the nature of human connection. But David Mazzucchelli's writing, paneling, pacing, and illustration of this book is something I don't think I've ever experienced with any other comic I've ever read. It's just an indescribable feeling I have for this comic, and I think if you really dig comics, it's something you should make a top priority. But that about does it for me in this list, at least for now. But these are the comics that I love and I would suggest y'all to read as well. These are comics I've been wanting to go over in a video for some time, but never quite knew how to approach it. So I just decided to sandwich them all together in one big video. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the recommendations. Catch y'all on the flip side. Wait, fuck, check out the originals too.